Dubai's skyline shimmered like a constellation scattered across desert darkness. From the observation deck of the Burj Khalifa, the world below looked untouchable. Streets traced in gold light, luxury cars threading highways like polished gems. To the passengers aboard Al-Fahim Airlines Flight 207, it was just another breathtaking arrival. But for Amira Santos, a 24-year-old Filipina flight attendant, this view still felt like a promise, proof that dreams could be bigger than the small-town life she had left behind. Amira adjusted her navy blazer, smoothing an invisible wrinkle as she prepared for final cabin checks. Her polished professionalism masked a restless ache, a longing for more than quick layovers and rented apartments. She had seen the world from 30,000 feet, but lately, every city felt like a fleeting stop on someone else's story. That was when she noticed him. Rashid Al-Fahim was not a man easily overlooked. Tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, he carried the kind of quiet authority that filled a room without a word. He wasn't just another wealthy passenger. He was the face of Dubai's hospitality empire, a billionaire whose hotel chain stretched from Riyadh to London. Most of the crew whispered about him in awe. Amira met his eyes for a second too long before looking away. The plane landed smoothly. As passengers disembarked, Rashid paused by the galley door. His gaze lingered just long enough to make her pulse skip. "Excellent service," he said in a low, warm voice. "Dubai is lucky to have someone like you representing her skies." It was nothing more than polite praise, but the way he said it felt intentional. 2 nights later, Amira received an unexpected invitation. A private cocktail reception at Rashid's penthouse atop one of Dubai Marina's tallest towers. She hesitated, reading the embossed message again. Crew members sometimes received thank-you gestures from VIP passengers, but this was different. The penthouse was infamous among Dubai's elite, a place of champagne nights, whispered deals, and secrets no one spoke of outside its mirrored halls. Standing on the penthouse balcony that evening, Amira felt the city's pulse beneath her feet. Rashid stood beside her, pointing out landmarks lit like jeweled constellations. His voice was smooth, his laughter disarming. For a moment, she forgot about her rented apartment, her bills, her carefully managed dreams. She was simply Amira, the woman who had captured a billionaire's attention. But even amid the glitter and glamour, a warning bell rang faintly in the back of her mind. Rashid's wedding ring had been conspicuously absent that night, but the whispers among the waitstaff had not been. Layla Al-Fahim, his wife of 10 years, was a fixture in Dubai society, a woman of poise and connections. To cross her was to cross an entire world. As the night stretched on, Rashid leaned closer, his words brushing her ear like velvet. "There's a whole world beyond the aisles of an airplane, Amira. Don't you want to see it?" She wanted to, but something about the weight of his gaze, intense and possessive, made her wonder what the cost of such a view might be. Don't forget to subscribe now. Stories like this only get more shocking from here. The city glittered on, indifferent to the choices being made on that balcony. Somewhere beyond the desert horizon, a storm was already gathering. The following weeks unfolded like a dream Amira hadn't dared to imagine. Between long-haul flights and hotel check-ins, she now had secret messages waiting on her phone, brief, magnetic words from Rashid Al-Fahim. The billionaire who could command a boardroom with a glance sent her voice notes that sounded almost boyish. Quick jokes, fragments of poetry, whispered plans for stolen evenings. One evening, he invited her again to the Marina penthouse. When she arrived, the room glowed with low amber light, the city stretching out beneath floor-to-ceiling windows like a map of stars. Rashid, this time in a crisp white kandjara instead of a suit, greeted her with a warmth that felt dangerously intimate. He wasn't the distant magnate the public knew. Here he was attentive, even tender. As they sipped champagne, Amira allowed herself to forget reality. Her modest studio apartment in Dera, the bills waiting to be paid, the airline schedule that left little room for a personal life. Rashid spoke of possibilities, traveling to Santorini on his private yacht, attending a gala in Paris, introducing her to a life of ease she had only glimpsed through passengers' stories. Each promise wrapped her tighter in a web of dazzling temptation. Yet beneath the sparkle, guilt flickered. In quieter moments, Amira thought about Layla Al-Fahim, the elegant wife whose photos graced society pages. Layla's poised smile was everywhere, at charity events, art exhibits, and luxury hotel openings. To imagine betraying such a woman made Amira's stomach twist, but Rashid brushed away her concerns with effortless charm. "Layla has her world and I have mine," he said one night, tracing a finger along the rim of his glass. "This is ours." Outside, Dubai's nightlife pulsed. Luxury cars revved outside clubs, and rooftop bars hummed with laughter. Inside the penthouse, Amira's world narrowed to the sound of Rashid's voice, and the view of the city sprawled beneath them. Meanwhile, subtle cracks began forming elsewhere. A colleague on her airline crew teased her about an anonymous tip that she'd been seen stepping out of a luxury car that wasn't a taxi. In Rashid's circle, an envious associate muttered to a friend about spotting the billionaire with a woman who was not his wife. Dubai's high society thrived on whispers, and this one was gaining volume. Rashid remained unfazed, but Amira felt the tension like a shift in the air before a storm. She noticed how, at a high-profile hotel launch, Layla stood beside her husband with a perfectly practiced smile, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Yet her eyes scanned the room with the precision of someone who already knew a secret was being kept from her. Late one night after another stolen evening, Amira lingered on the penthouse balcony. The wind carried the scent of the sea and something heavier, doubt. Beneath the glittering skyline, the city's pulse felt different now, less like a promise, more like a warning. She had crossed a line, and she wasn't sure there was a way back. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rumbled over the desert. By midsummer, Dubai's heat was merciless, and so were the whispers spreading through its glittering social circles. In luxury hotel lounges and members-only clubs, Rashid Al-Fahim's name began surfacing in hushed tones, always paired with the phrase, "another woman." Amira Santos could feel it too. On a flight to London, two fellow attendants exchanged knowing glances when she stepped away to check her phone. Even her best friend on the crew, Layla, asked carefully, "You're okay, right? You seem distracted lately." Amira forced a laugh. "Just tired, long shifts." But the truth was gnawing at her. Rashid's texts had become less frequent, his excuses longer. When they did meet, there was an edge to his voice, a tightness in his jaw. One night at the penthouse, she pressed him gently. "Are we okay? You seem distant." Rashid poured himself a drink, staring out at the shimmering Marina skyline. "The business is stressful. A new hotel launch in Riyadh. Layla has been—" He stopped himself, turning back with a practiced smile. "Everything's fine, Habibti." But it wasn't fine. Layla Al-Fahim, long known for her composure, had quietly begun her own investigation. A loyal household staff member had whispered what she feared. Her husband wasn't just staying late at board meetings. Layla hired a discreet private investigator, an old family contact accustomed to discretion. Within weeks, she had photographs, Rashid's hand on Amira's waist, the two stepping out of a black Maybach under the cover of night. Still, Layla waited. She knew the power of timing in Dubai's elite circles. An open confrontation could humiliate her family, destabilize Rashid's empire, and feed the gossip she despised. Instead, she watched, gathering information like a chess master biding her move. The cracks widened further when Rashid's business rival, Karim Darwish, caught wind of the affair. Karim, always eager to tarnish the Al-Fahim name, hinted to a reporter that Dubai's most powerful hotelier might not be as untouchable as he appeared. Rumors of corporate instability began circulating. Shares of Al-Fahim holdings dipped ever so slightly, but enough for the board to take notice. Amira, unaware of the full extent of the damage, began to feel the walls closing in. The thrill of clandestine meetings had soured into anxiety. She imagined paparazzi flashing cameras in her face, her family in the Philippines learning everything through sensational headlines. Rashid's assurances, "I'll protect you always," now rang hollow. A week later, as Rashid attended a gala with Layla, Amira watched the coverage on her phone. The couple looked flawless. Layla's emerald gown shimmered under the chandeliers. Rashid's hand rested lightly on her back. The image sent a sharp pang through Amira's chest. That night when Rashid texted, "Can we talk tomorrow?" she hesitated before replying, "We need to." In the penthouse the next evening, she faced him. "You can't have it both ways forever, Rashid. I'm not just a secret you visit when it's convenient." His expression hardened. "You knew what this was. You knew my life is complicated." "I knew you were married," she shot back, voice trembling. "But you made me believe there was more." He exhaled, frustration flickering in his eyes. "Amira, the world I live in, it doesn't forgive easily. Be patient." Patience, however, was wearing thin. Outside, the city buzzed with opulence and ambition, but inside the penthouse, the air felt fragile, like glass under strain. Unbeknownst to them both, Layla had already circled a date on her calendar. She wasn't just waiting anymore. She was planning. The first cool breeze of autumn swept through Dubai's streets, but inside the Al-Fahim penthouse, the temperature was rising. Layla Al-Fahim's patience had reached its limit. Weeks of quiet investigation had given her everything she needed. Time-stamped photos, location data, even a hotel receipt under Amira Santos's name signed in Rashid's familiar handwriting. That evening, Rashid returned from a board meeting to find Layla seated in their marble-floored living room, a single envelope on the table before her. She didn't raise her voice when she said, "You've underestimated me." Rashid froze. The envelope lay like a bomb between them. He opened it and stared at the damning evidence, photos of him and Amira, intimate and undeniable. His carefully constructed mask cracked. "Layla," he began, but she cut him off with a steady hand. "Do not insult me with excuses. You've embarrassed this family. Do you understand what they'll do if this becomes public?" In her world, reputation was currency, and Rashid had gambled recklessly. Layla didn't threaten him outright, but the message was clear. She would protect the family's name at any cost. Meanwhile, Amira's life was unraveling in quieter ways. She had begun receiving anonymous texts, short, sharp warnings. "End it, or everyone will know." At first, she dismissed them as pranks. But when a man in a suit she didn't recognize watched her too closely outside her crew apartment, her heart pounded with dread. She confided in her friend Layla during a layover in Singapore. "I think someone's following me, or maybe I'm just paranoid." Layla frowned. "This isn't a game, Amira. These are powerful people." Rashid tried to soothe her fears, but his own temper had grown short. The tension at home with Layla and the whispers in the business community were taking their toll. To calm Amira, and perhaps himself, he proposed a romantic escape. "Just us," he promised, "to remind you what we have." He chose the Marina penthouse again, despite knowing its proximity to prying eyes was risky. That Friday, the city hummed beneath a velvet night sky as Amira arrived. The suite glowed with soft light, a table set with her favorite dishes. For a few hours, they laughed again, pretending the world outside didn't exist. But Rashid's phone buzzed repeatedly with messages he ignored. Layla, having tracked his car via a discreetly installed device, knew exactly where he was. Her driver waited nearby as she rode the elevator up, her emerald earrings catching the penthouse lights like shards of ice. The confrontation was electric. The penthouse door swung open, and Layla stepped in with an uncharacteristic tremor in her voice. "So it's true," she whispered, her gaze fixed on Amira. Amira backed toward the window, words caught in her throat. Rashid stepped forward, voice sharp. "Layla, this isn't what you think." "Don't lie to me," Layla snapped. "Not again." For a tense moment, no one moved. The city's skyline glittered innocently through the glass as 3 lives tilted toward disaster. Layla turned to leave but paused at the door. "You've humiliated me, Rashid. You've humiliated yourself, and the city will feast on this." When the door closed behind her, Rashid cursed under his breath. Amira's hands trembled as she whispered, "She's not going to let this go." Outside, the desert wind picked up, swirling grit through the Marina's polished streets. A storm was coming, not the kind that sweeps sand across highways, but the kind that shatters reputations and ends in blood. The Marina skyline sparkled like a necklace against the black velvet sky, but inside the penthouse, the tension was suffocating. Rashid Al-Fahim paced the length of the glass-walled living room, phone pressed to his ear, fielding frantic calls from a board member. The confrontation with Layla had already sent ripples through his inner circle. Rumors were moving faster than the desert wind. Amira Santos sat curled on the leather sofa, her eyes tracing the city lights below. She wasn't naive anymore. This wasn't just a lover's quarrel that would blow over. "Rashid," she said quietly, "she's going to destroy you, and me." He ended the call and turned toward her, jaw tight. "She won't dare. It would hurt her more than anyone." But his voice lacked conviction. Hours later, just past midnight, a knock at the door startled them both. Rashid froze. Very few people knew this place. He motioned for Amira to stay silent, but another knock, firmer now, echoed through the suite. Against his better judgment, Rashid opened the door. Layla stood there, not in evening finery, but in a tailored black abaya, her expression carved from stone. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. "We are going to settle this tonight," she said evenly. Amira rose to her feet, her heart hammering. "Mrs. Al-Fahim, I never wanted to hurt you." Layla's eyes flicked to her, unreadable. "You knew exactly what you were doing." She turned back to Rashid. "And you, how many secrets do you think you can buy your way out of?" Rashid held up his hands, trying to keep his voice steady. "Layla, enough. This isn't the place." But the place no longer mattered. Words that had been swallowed for weeks now spilled like broken glass. Layla accused. Rashid defended. Amira tried to mediate, only to be caught in the crossfire. "Do you understand what this means for our family?" Layla's voice cracked for the first time. "The business, the children, my name." Rashid snapped back. "Your name? What about me? I built this empire. I can't breathe under your rules anymore." A glass of wine tipped over, crimson liquid spreading like a stain across the white marble. The three stood in silence for a breath too long, until Layla took a step closer to Amira, her voice low but sharp. "He will discard you the moment it suits him." Amira's lip trembled, but she didn't look away. "Maybe he already has." Rashid's temper flared. "Enough!" He slammed his hand on the table, the sound reverberating through the room. But in that split second of anger, the fragile balance between them shattered. Accounts would later differ on what happened next. Some would claim Layla lunged. Others would swear Rashid shoved first. What is certain is the struggle that followed, raised voices, a crash of glass, footsteps scuffling across marble. A decorative vase fell and shattered. In the chaos, someone screamed. When the noise ceased, the penthouse was eerily quiet except for the distant hum of traffic below. A life had ended. The glittering skyline bore silent witness to the moment when forbidden passion, pride, and fear turned deadly. The clock read 12:47 a.m. In the city that never sleeps, no one outside those walls yet knew the secret it now held. But by morning, Dubai's gossip network, then its news outlets, and finally the world would. Far below, a car engine idled briefly before disappearing into the night. The storm Rashid had feared was no longer on the horizon. It was here. The Marina skyline was still waking when the first whispers rippled through Dubai's elite. A security guard at the tower had heard shouting hours before. A cleaning crew on the floor below noticed shards of glass outside the penthouse balcony. But it wasn't until a housekeeper, scheduled for early morning service, let herself into Rashid Al-Fahim's suite that the nightmare became public. Her scream pierced the quiet hallway. Within minutes, emergency services swarmed the building. Police cordoned off the entrance as paramedics wheeled out a stretcher draped in white. Rashid Al-Fahim's name had not yet been confirmed, but his Maybach parked out front and the whispers of building staff left little doubt. Dubai's media networks reacted cautiously at first. Stories involving the city's most powerful families always did. But the rumor mill on social media had no such restraint. By mid-morning, hashtags referencing a Marina murder and billionaire scandal were trending across the UAE and beyond. At police headquarters, Detective Farid Qasim was assigned to the case. A seasoned investigator with a reputation for cutting through the noise, Farid approached the crime scene methodically. The penthouse was a testament to luxury. Crystal chandeliers, Italian marble, floor-to-ceiling glass walls with a $1 million view. But the opulence only highlighted the violence. The shattered vase on the floor, the streak of blood near the bar counter, the faint smell of spilt wine. The first interviews revealed a tangled web of connections. A concierge quietly admitted seeing Rashid enter the building late at night with a woman who wasn't his wife. Security footage confirmed Amira Santos arriving at the penthouse hours before the incident, and Layla Al-Fahim's private car was captured by cameras pulling up to the tower not long after. Detective Farid reviewed the timeline. Rashid and Amira entered at 8:45 p.m. Layla's arrival logged at 11:57 p.m. The first noise complaint recorded by security at 12:32 a.m. A neighbor's phone video captured muffled shouting around 12:40 a.m. By 12:50 a.m., the building's elevator cameras showed Layla exiting alone, face pale but composed. The detective's instincts told him this wasn't a simple crime of passion. Power, reputation, and fear were intertwined here. Meanwhile, the media frenzy intensified. Satellite news vans parked outside Al-Fahim Holdings headquarters. Speculative talk shows debated everything from Dubai's high society morality to the airline industry's grueling pressures on young flight attendants. Amira's identity leaked online within hours, leading to a flood of invasive comments and false narratives. Layla Al-Fahim made no public appearance that day. Her family's spokesperson issued a terse statement. The Al-Fahim family is cooperating fully with authorities during this difficult time. Amira, escorted from her crew housing by plainclothes officers, sobbed quietly during questioning. "I didn't touch him," she whispered to Detective Farid. "We argued, but I did." She couldn't finish. Her story painted a picture of chaos, a shouting match, broken glass, a desperate shove, but she insisted Rashid was alive when she last saw him. Layla's version was even more carefully measured. She admitted to confronting her husband and the other woman, but denied any physical altercation beyond a heated argument. "I left," she said calmly. "I was humiliated, but I would never harm Rashid." Forensics began to tell its own story. Fingerprints on the shattered vase belonged to all three. A single broken cufflink, bearing Rashid's initials, was found near the balcony. But what caught Farid's attention most was the faint trace of blood on the edge of the glass table, and the way the balcony railing bore subtle scratches, as if someone had grabbed it in a final, desperate moment. By nightfall, international headlines were running full speed. Dubai billionaire's love triangle turns deadly, and flight attendant at center of Marina penthouse mystery. Detective Farid knew the investigation was just beginning. Beneath the glitz of the city's towers and the curated image of its elite, someone's carefully hidden truth had turned fatal. And now, every secret would have to surface. The Dubai criminal court was overflowing on the first day of the trial. Reporters, socialites, and curious onlookers crowded the marble steps, their murmurs mingling with the whir of cameras. Security was tight. This wasn't just any criminal case. Rashid Al-Fahim had been a pillar of Dubai's business world, a man whose hotels hosted royalty and whose philanthropy graced every society column. His death had become an international spectacle. Detective Farid Qasim watched from the gallery as Amira Santos was led into the courtroom, wrists free but flanked by guards. She wore a simple beige dress, her face pale and drawn. In the weeks since Rashid's death, Amira had become both a villain and a victim in the public eye. Her name had been splashed across tabloids, her photos stolen from social media. Strangers online debated her morality while her family back in Manila faced harassment from reporters. The prosecution painted a picture of jealousy turned deadly. Amira, enraged by Rashid's refusal to leave his wife, confronted him violently. They argued she pushed him, sending him crashing fatally against the glass table before fleeing the scene. But the defense countered with its own theory, one whispered by many since that fateful night. They suggested Layla Al-Fahim had the motive, opportunity, and presence at the scene to commit the crime. Layla herself sat stoically in the front row, dressed in an elegant black abaya, her face an unreadable mask. Witness after witness took the stand. The concierge testified about seeing Rashid with Amira on multiple occasions. A building security guard confirmed Layla's late-night arrival. Forensics experts detailed the broken vase, the cufflink, and the blood traces. Yet none of it painted a clear picture of who had delivered the fatal blow. The media coverage was relentless. News anchors dissected every expression caught on camera. Opinion pieces debated morality, class, and gender dynamics in Dubai's upper crust. Hashtags like Penthouse Mystery and Justice for Rashid trended for weeks. Even international outlets in London and Manila picked up the story, turning Amira into a symbol, either of a young woman exploited by power or of reckless ambition that cost a man his life. Outside the courtroom, protests formed, small but vocal groups demanding transparency and fairness in a case involving one of Dubai's most powerful families. Some carried signs reading, "Power shouldn't buy justice," while others held photos of Rashid with captions like, "Remember the victim." Detective Farid, though publicly silent, privately wrestled with doubts. The forensic evidence was circumstantial at best. Rashid's head injury could have resulted from an accident in the chaos. The balcony scratches could indicate a struggle or a desperate attempt to steady himself. The timeline left room for multiple possibilities, Layla leaving moments before the fall or Amira panicking and fleeing after a tragic accident. In a particularly tense moment, Amira took the stand. Her voice shook as she recounted the evening. "We argued. He said he couldn't leave her. I was crying. He was shouting. Layla arrived and everything spiraled. I didn't push him, I swear." The courtroom was silent except for the clicks of reporters' keyboards. Layla's gaze never wavered. The prosecution tried to paint Amira's tears as performance, but her vulnerability swayed some in the crowd. A juror glanced at her sympathetically. Another frowned, perhaps unconvinced. As the trial dragged on, Dubai's glittering facade seemed to crack. Editorials questioned the unchecked power of its elites. Gossip forums speculated about Rashid's other secrets, business rivals, hidden debts, or other affairs. When the judge announced that closing arguments would begin the following week, the city braced itself. Whatever the verdict, the story had already changed Dubai's social landscape. A billionaire's fall from grace had exposed fault lines of power, privilege, and passion, and now the world waited to see if justice could truly reach the heights of the Marina's towers. The morning of the verdict, Dubai's skyline gleamed under a cloudless sky, but outside the criminal court, the mood was anything but serene. Satellite vans crowded the streets, and reporters jostled for position behind barricades. Hashtags Penthouse Verdict and Justice for Rashid trended worldwide as viewers from London to Manila tuned in. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Amira Santos sat at the defense table, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Across the aisle, Layla Al-Fahim remained composed, though her diamond earrings betrayed a slight tremor as they caught the light. Detective Farid Qasim observed from the back row, his expression unreadable but his mind still full of unanswered questions. The judge entered, his robes whispering against the marble floor. The room fell silent. Cameras outside captured the moment live as the clerk read. In the case of the death of Rashid Al-Fahim, this court finds the defendant, Amira Santos, not guilty of intentional murder, citing insufficient evidence to prove deliberate harm beyond reasonable doubt. Gasps rippled through the room. The judge continued. However, the court finds the defendant guilty of negligence resulting in accidental death and sentences her to 3 years in prison. with time served considered. Amira closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks, not of victory but of exhaustion. She had avoided a life sentence, yet her life was irrevocably altered. Layla's jaw tightened, but she did not speak. To the outside world, her dignity remained intact, but inside, humiliation and grief festered. For the Al-Fahim family, the scandal was far from over. Business associates whispered about lost confidence in the family empire. A planned hotel opening in Paris was quietly postponed. Outside the courthouse, protesters erupted into cheers and outrage in equal measure. Some shouted that Amira was a scapegoat for a powerful family's secrets. Others insisted she had escaped harsher punishment because of public sympathy. News anchors scrambled to capture sound bites as the narrative shifted again. Was this justice, or just damage control for Dubai's elite? In Manila, Amira's family watched the live stream with mixed emotions. Her younger brother whispered, "She's coming home someday," while her mother wept silently. The Filipino public rallied around her, turning her into both a cautionary tale and a symbol of resilience against power. Detective Farid lingered outside the courtroom steps, staring at the sea of microphones. To him, the verdict was a compromise, one that avoided implicating Dubai's most influential families directly. But the evidence still nagged him. The broken cufflink, the scratches on the balcony railing, and the unanswered question of Layla's brief, unaccounted minutes between leaving the penthouse and the first witness reports. Over the following weeks, Dubai's gossip columns feasted on the fallout. Layla retreated from public life, focusing on her children and quietly restructuring her stake in the family's businesses. Amira, now serving her reduced sentence, granted no interviews, but leaked letters to a friend revealed her remorse and fear of ever trusting again. Rashid's funeral had been held privately, attended only by family, business partners, and a handful of dignitaries. The absence of a public memorial fueled speculation that the Al-Fahims wanted to bury not just Rashid, but the scandal itself. International headlines slowly moved on, but in Dubai's high society, the whispers lingered. At rooftop galas and yacht parties, guests lowered their voices when the Marina's towers came into view. To them, the penthouse was no longer a symbol of glamour, but a reminder of how quickly privilege could turn fatal. For Detective Farid, the case remained a quiet ghost. Some nights he'd walk along the Marina promenade, glance up at the glittering towers, and wonder if the full truth had been buried with Rashid. He suspected it had, but in Dubai, as in life, some secrets were too dangerous to expose.